Sir Graham Watson, Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg, Guy Verhofstadt, Astrid, and friends, may I first of all say, on behalf of my party, the Fianna Fáil party, it is a particular privilege and pleasure to welcome you all to Dublin and to this ELDR conference. It's a great honour for our party to be the host of this year's event. And I hope you enjoyed a sample of our culture, our traditional culture, and particularly traditional Irish dance, which in recent years has been modernised. And as I watched the dancers earlier, I think the ingredients that came to mind, or the characteristics that came to mind, were vitality, energy, creativity, enduring. The kind of characteristics and qualities and values that Europe kind of needs at the moment in terms of coming out of the present crisis that we are in. And we salute the young vitality of Irish dancers this afternoon. Could I also say it's a particular pleasure to welcome Nick Clegg to Dublin in the context of this conference because of course, as a former Foreign Minister in Ireland, the relationship between Ireland and Great Britain is an extremely important one, a warm one, and a very friendly one. And we're particularly delighted that he has taken the trouble to be with us this afternoon at this conference because, once again, testament to that warmth and to that enduring friendship between our two countries. Thank you very much indeed, Nick. And finally, I must say, I must pay tribute to Sir Graham for defining Dick Roche in a way that no Irish person or politician has ever managed to define him. And I think he got to him more than most. I have to say that in passing. Dick was a former colleague of mine in the Department of Foreign Affairs. As we gather here today, I think we reflect and we know that we are a party in which there are many different views and different perspectives. And that's exactly as it should be, because we have 50 member parties which reflect the rich diversity of Europe itself. However, the ELDR, or the ALDE, as we will soon be calling ourselves, is increasing both as a network and within the institutions of the Union. And the reason for this is clear. There are core ideals and values on which we all agree. And by far the most important of these is that European countries are always stronger when they work together in a spirit of solidarity. And solidarity between nations is what built the most successful international organization the world has ever seen. Solidarity is what delivered sustained economic and social progress over half a century. Solidarity is what built lasting peace between historic enemies. Solidarity is what brought new states into the Union and gave others a pathway for development. The spirit of solidarity has been the foundation for every positive development in Europe over the last 60 years. And it is a spirit which we need now more than ever before. And this Congress is meeting at a moment when our continent is experiencing the longest and deepest crisis in many decades. After 3 years of emergency summits and claimed breakthroughs, the reality is that the situation remains grave. Extreme forces are gaining strength in many countries. Millions of our citizens are trapped in unemployment. Public faith in politics, if we're honest, is at its lowest ever level. And for the first time, many citizens are beginning to doubt the Union itself. There is no way of putting a positive spin on the current situation. But in response, we can either just sit back and let events continue, or we can do the one thing which is needed most of all. We can be true to the founding spirit of the Union. No individual country has within itself the powers, the capacity to secure a certain return to sustained growth and job creation. We cannot solve common problems by only looking at the media cycle and promoting a narrowly defined national interest. The Union's founding generation overcame obstacles far bigger than those we face today. Let's not forget that. They also showed a resolute leadership. The mistakes which have been made over the last 3 years are unmistakable. At every critical stage, I would argue that there's been a lack of urgency and a lack of ambition amongst European leaders. They have attempted to tackle new problems within existing structures. It's important to acknowledge that there have indeed been positive moves, but each one has come at the last possible moment. A lack of confidence in where Europe is headed lies at the heart of much of the crisis today. Confidence is a difficult thing to build and an easy thing to lose. I have no doubt that we can turn this situation around if everyone is willing to work together so that the great and noble project of cooperation between European states is continued. The most radical achievement of Europe's founding generation was to show that sharing powers in a multinational organisation doesn't undermine sovereignty, it strengthens it. They saw what a narrow and protective definition of a nation-state had done to Europe and were determined to show a better way. They show that the public is willing to be far braver in supporting new policies than many politicians expect. And what they proved time and again was you can't see every negotiation as a zero-sum game, which must have winners and losers. The next 12 months could well define the entire future of the Union. Big decisions are needed in relation to the budget, reform of the Economic and Monetary Union, energy policy, the expansion of the Union, and other vital areas. If these negotiations are approached with everyone staking out rigid national positions and then defending them through the media, the outcome will be very serious. For mainstream parties that pander to anti-European sentiment, the results have been dismal. All that they've achieved is to give legitimacy to extreme positions, damaging themselves and their own country. And leaders should look at the great results, as Graham has pointed out, secured this year by Mark Rutte and the VVD. They refused to take a sharp turn to the extremes, but they stood up to the extremes and they won. And if we want the Union to work, then we need it. We need to challenge those extremes. We need to be confident in our values and in what the Union stands for. And furthermore, if we want the Union to work, we do need it to have a credible budget, particularly in the context of the crisis we are now in. A budget that's large enough to support vital investments without undermining existing policies. We need a reform of the treaties and institutions which learn the lessons of what has gone wrong. It is not enough to say that all we need is to be stricter in enforcing existing policies. Even Jacques Delors has talked about the need for fundamental reform of EMU. And we also need to remain true to the promise made to non-member countries that they will be allowed to join. And this must be done without imposing unfair conditions and again in a genuine spirit of community. And a good first step on this, of course, should be the rapid welcoming of Croatia as the 28th member state. There is no more time to waste. Europe's citizens have not yet given up on the Union, but they may do so if the leaders continue to show the urgency and ambition which is so clearly needed. We as a party are fortunate to have Graham Watson and Guy Verhofstadt as our leaders at this particular moment. In the Parliament, Guy has ensured that our voice is heard loudly in every debate. And whilst everyone may not agree with Guy at all times or with every proposal he makes, there is no doubt that if his Eurobond proposal had been accepted, we would be looking back on the sovereign debt crisis and not still stuck in it. So Graham has continued to be a great support for member parties, both individually and as a network, and has been an outstanding leader of our party. And as we can see at this Congress, there is a great energy in the party at the moment, and I know that this will continue to build with the ambitions that our leaders have for it. It is right and proper that we will spend a lot of time talking about the many problems faced by our countries and by Europe as a whole. But what is actually more important is that we also focus on and discuss solutions and show a shared effort to implement them in the months and years ahead. The awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize to the European Union was a reminder by the Norwegian Academy to us all not to forget about how much has been achieved over more than half a century. And we must continue to commit ourselves to fighting extreme nationalism wherever it appears. And we must demand leadership, and we must work for a Europe which recommits itself to the spirit of solidarity which achieved so much in the past and which can do so again into the future. Thank you very much indeed, and I trust you will have an enjoyable and fruitful conference.